Hi, welcome to See Today. Now I'm joined by John Denton as the Secretary General of the International Chamber of Commerce for an interview. And today we'll be having a discussion related to the global economy and also how businesses in Indonesia can balance between the economic growth and sustainability. Hello, Mr. Denton, how are you?
Great. Very good. Very happy to be here.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah.
Okay, so let me start this interview with a question. As the Secretary General of the ICC, what is your perspective on the current state of the global economy amidst geopolitical tension? Because there seems to be an increasing trend toward protectionism and also trade barriers. How do you see this conflict? And what is the impact on the global trade and investment?
Oh, look, thanks very much. It's a great question. If you look at the outlook for global trade at the moment, clearly there's some challenges along the way. The new US administration has announced relatively recently that it'll be using tariffs in order to protect its own industry, also to stop fentanyl, also to stop illegal immigration, also to encourage people to move production back, also to be part of its battle, I think, for economic supremacy with China, and also to generate more revenue for the US. So clearly the US is a significant economic player, but I think it's also important to understand that the US, unlike in 2016, the US now accounts for just on 13% of global trade. It doesn't account for 50%. It accounts for 13%, which tells you that the rest of the world, which is the other 87%, has a common interest as well in ensuring that the way in which trade operates can actually accommodate the changed disposition of the US, but continue to operate in a way that allows their economies to develop, which is why this conference is very important, I think, as well.
Okay, so I see. So this conflict, of course, it gives impact to many countries, including the emerging economies like Indonesia. So how do you think that Indonesia as an emerging countries can navigate themselves and position themselves effectively amid this global conflict?
Yeah, well, it's an interesting question. I mean, the reality is that Indonesia and the Indonesian economy has been a net beneficiary of the open trading environment which has been enabled by the operation of an effective multilateral trading system. Indonesia's benefited from it, ASEAN has benefited from it, APEC has benefited from it. If you think about one of the biggest changes in the world in the last 30, 40 years has been the supply chain revolution, which has really driven a lot of economic opportunity in Asia. That would not have happened without the way in which the multilateral trading system operated. So the reason I say that, it's in Indonesia's interest to actually ensure that this system continues to operate, even with the changed disposition of the US administration towards the global trading system. For the 87% of the rest of the world, there needs to be a compact to let's keep this system functioning. That's not against the US. We all want the US to participate in a functioning and effective and a 21st century trading system that's fair to all.
If you see the condition of Indonesia now, do you think that Indonesia can still work effectively amid this conflict?
Well, I think Indonesia's importance in the world gives us an opportunity to have agency here. Indonesia is a founding part of ASEAN. It's a critical part of ASEAN. Indonesia is a critical part of the APEC community. I mean, it's led APEC on a number of occasions. Indonesia is also a leader and has led the G20. So there's lots of areas in which Indonesia, as a political economy, as a sovereign state, can influence its own future, but also be part of the conversations and part of changing or enabling a direction of global policy making, which is in the interest of Indonesia.
During yesterday's panel of discussion, you were one of the speakers who talked about the sustainable infrastructure development. So my question is, how do you view the importance of the sustainable trade and what role does it play in fostering long-term growth?
Oh, it's a great question, but let's be very clear. The ICC supports action on climate and the enablement of the energy transition, because we are very concerned to ensure that we have a livable planet upon which we can do business. We believe the science, and so we're working to ensure that happens as smoothly and as efficiently as possible. We do not want a massive dislocation. We actually want to ensure the systems are in place to enable the energy transition to allow us to have this very livable planet. And for that reason, we support the Paris Agreement. We just think it took too long to get to it, and it's too slow in delivering it. That being said, we all have agency. We will do our part. The ICC enables $10 trillion worth of trade finance every year. What we're doing at the moment is ensuring and grading that all those trade finance transactions to ensure that the way in which we conduct our affairs is actually in line with achieving sustainable outcomes. So that's sustainable trade finance. We're actually living it, we're delivering it.
Oh, okay, great. So what role can international organizations like ICC play in encouraging green business practices in Indonesia, and which policies should the Indonesian government prioritize to support this transition?
Well, we have a very strong presence in Indonesia. We have ICC here. We're part, and we work very closely with Kadin. It's great to be with the Indonesian Business Council as well today. So we have a lot of engagement with the Indonesian business community. In fact, Shinta Kamdani is one of the vice chairs of the ICC and chairs our regional group. So the ICC creates the soft law upon which a lot of business just operates. The whole concept called Incoterms, which is the fundamental contracting arrangements, is actually curated by the ICC. As I said, we also enable trade finance through our rules, but also things like certificates of origin. All these things that enable trade are actually supported by or actually creatures of the ICC. We also have founded a Centre of Entrepreneurship in Jakarta, and the whole purpose of that is to enable businesses and entrepreneurs to develop their enterprises, but also to create new jobs and opportunities. And we're doing that in a way which is very sustainable. And it's not sustainable because we just think it's a nice word. It's because it's really important to enable those businesses to have access to the practices which will allow them also to participate in global value chains, many of which are demanding evidence that you're actually operating sustainably in order to participate in those value chains. So we do all that here in Indonesia. And obviously in doing that in Indonesia with business, we're making certain that the interests of those businesses are well known to government, and that the government thinks about their interests when they're creating policies. Okay,
you mentioned about Kadin. Well, both ICC and Kadin are committed to promote international trade and investment, and also both organizations work to influence policies that support business growth. So how do the ICC and Kadin collaborate to advocate for policies that create a more conducive businesses environment for investment in Indonesia?
Well, I think one of the great things is this conference, ministers are attending and policymakers are here, and they're hearing directly from business about the issues that concern them and the opportunities for more investment. I spoke on a panel yesterday, and I think the messages there were very clear. If you want more infrastructure to help drive economic growth, to reach that 8% target, you've probably got as much value as you can out of state-owned enterprise-driven infrastructure growth. You now really need to free up space for private capital. And so do you have the enabling environment to support that? These are the sort of things that we're discussing. And in fact, I'm just in a meeting with the Minister for Investment now.
Last question, Mr. Denton. What are the key areas where the ICC and Kadin are focusing their efforts to position Indonesia as the attractive investment destination?
Well, there's a couple of things. First of all, you need to make the environment right. You need to send a clear signal that you're serious about allowing foreign investment to actually take place here. Don't forget, Indonesia is not the only country in the world that's looking for investment. There are lots of states that are looking for investment. And so investors look for signals. I think that the commitment of the Indonesian government through accession to the OECD sends a very clear signal to the global business, global capital, that this government is serious about raising the standards to allow more capital to be deployed here. So those sorts of things are what we're focused on as well in our discussions with the Indonesian government.
Okay. Thank you so much, Mr. Denton, for your time. I hope that this conversation will give a valuable insight for our audiences. So stay tuned on Today to find out more.